welcome to the Festival
of Storytellers.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement, getting prepared, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top.
Thank you, Reader's Magnet, and thank you, John, for putting this forth and taking the chance on us authors in presenting this out to the world.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Joanne.
Ellie, so have I. Thank you for who you are, and thank you, Reader's Magnet. You all are beautiful, and you've worked so very hard, and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
Well, hello there again. This is Kenneth Sousa, the author of Mandar of Atlantis, published by Reader's Magnet. You probably saw me yesterday if you watched this show, which is a good idea to do. It's a very interesting show. Today, I'm not only going to speak about Mandar, I also have another book that I published. I actually wrote while I was writing Mandar, although this book was took 2 years to write, but it's called Black Menace, and I will speak about that in a few minutes from now. But you can get it on Barnes & Noble or Amazon. At any rate, let me get back to Black Menace for a minute, because that's where I left off talking yesterday. People asked me questions yesterday, and some of them I just didn't have time to think about a good answer for it. And I also mispronounced people's names, so please excuse me for doing that, because I have a short time to read it at the bottom, and I can't always put the names together. But I do my best, and please excuse me if I don't pronounce your name right. At any rate, Mandar is a book which I didn't mention is strongly related to reincarnation. And one of the places that reincarnation came from, for me, was the fact that a man named Edgar Cayce, who was a psychic healer back in the 20s, 30s, into the 40s, where he died, would have people come to him and tell them their health problems. And he would go into a trance and give them an explanation of what they needed to do in order to make their health better. But the odd thing about it was that while he was doing that, he also told them about their past lives. And one of the more interesting things is the fact that he told them about past lives in Atlantis and what they were doing in Atlantis with their lives and what Atlantis looked like for them. Now, I thought about that, and I'm thinking, oh, he's talking about reincarnation. It has to be reincarnation, because this was something that happened at least 14,000 years ago. So my story, Black Menace, Mandar, is a story about Manny Silver in the beginning. And he's working as a security guard, but he's been reading Edgar Cayce, and the fact that Supposedly, the Atlanteans left information in one of the pyramids in Central America talking about Atlantis, and it would be the proof that there was an Atlantis. So Manny Silva decides that he's got to go to Central America and on a quest and find proof of Atlantis. So on his way there, and he doesn't recognize this is what's happened, but he goes through several adventurous misadventures. And in those misadventures are being controlled by the people 4,000 years ago, the evil people, through a magic harp called the Harp of Agron. They could strum the strings of the harp, and a demon would appear, and they could have the demon change life in a reincarnation ahead of time. So the misadventures that Manny Silva goes through in the first couple of chapters before he gets to Guatemala City are being caused by somebody in the past. They don't want Manny Silva to go into the Atlantis time period, 14,000 years ago, because he becomes Mandar of Atlantis. And he's a strong man, a good man, not quite a superhero, but a very well-to-do and strong, rightful working, noble person. And it's his job to take this princess and her husband from the European area, which were still wearing furs, and bring them to Atlantis, which was a high tech. According to Ed Casey, Atlantis was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and it was a high tech continent. They had hovercraft, they had airships, they had steamships. They could travel the world, set up colonies all over the world, and taught people to build pyramids. As a matter of fact, their main representative building was a giant pyramid in Atlantis. So that is a good part of what happens in the book. Poor Manny Silva never recognizes that he is being manipulated by people in the past. But those people know he's going to go into a delusion while he's sick in Guatemala City and become Mandar of Atlantis. This is about the third chapter, halfway through that this happens in the book. Although Mandar does dream about Manny does dream about Mandar in one of the dreams leading up to him becoming Mandar of Atlantis. This is a good story, and it's a great adventure. It's what people call a page turner. And I'm not just saying that myself. Anybody who talks to me about the book says, wow, that's such a page turner. I can't even put it down. As a matter of fact, a friend of my wife, when she got a copy of it, she read it from beginning to end through the middle of the night into breakfast, and before she finished the book. But she did finish it because she couldn't put it down. So anybody who likes that type of adventure story with fantasy, magic, evil characters, good winning over evil, needs to read this book. And they'll enjoy it, and they won't be able to put it down. Oh, it's Jessica Felton. Thank you very much for welcoming me back, Jessica. Oh, it's Jessa. Sorry, see? Names get mixed up. Jessa. And Ethan Lee is there. Great book cover. Oh, thank you so much for that. It is a work of many people besides myself. And I appreciate you saying that because you don't always know. So I am your number one fan, Kenneth. Loved your book one. I will be definitely included in my TBR to be read, I'm assuming. That's very good to hear. Are there any more questions about Mandar before I move on and tell you a little bit about Black Menace? Looking forward to learning more about Mandar. All right, I won't tell you the whole story because if I do, you won't need to go out and buy it and read it. But I will tell you that reincarnation is a very important part. The love story between Selena and Mandar is a very important part of the book. That carries the book on, and it's all the way into first 3 books in the series. Selena's, of course, a beautiful girl, comes from Euroland, which, as you can guess, is the Euro area, European area. She's beautiful, long, red hair, and she wears furs because they haven't come in Euroland. They haven't come far enough to change the cloth yet. At any rate, she gets captured by the bad guy, the evil prince of Inanna named Zaharab, and she's taken to Angoland along with her husband, Hirak. Hirak is a husband, but a bad husband. The only reason that he married her was that so he could become chief, because Selena's father was the chief of their tribe in Euroland. But he's working along with the bad people, Zaharab and his mother Polta. But they are in Angoland, and they are the ones who are manipulating Manny Silver at the beginning of the book, and are the bad people through the rest of the first book. Like I said, they use the magic harp and the demon of Agron to manipulate everything in the present time as well as the future time, like what goes on with Manny Silver. They do capture Selena, and they do force her into the underworld. And it's Manny's job to go into the underworld and find them and save her from the creatures in the underworld who are being controlled by Zaharab and his mother Poltar. Poltar actually is an Atlantean. She was exiled from Atlantis for stealing the Harp of Agron and hiding it. And then when she's exiled to Angoland, and in Angoland she's using it for evil purposes. And the demon is controlled by whoever plucks the strings of the harp. So the demon can be a good demon or a bad demon. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's bad all the time. And it doesn't necessarily mean that he's in control of what's going on, because humans do tell him what they want, and he has to do it. At any rate, the movie, that's just the early beginning of the first couple of chapters, maybe 3 or 4 chapters of the book. It goes on from there. The ways that Manda helps Selena escape from the underworld, how they escape from Angoland and get back to Atlantis. It's a page turner, and every page has an adventure on it, just about, at least part of an adventure. I know that you will love this book, and we've got Margaret Tucker saying, "Hello, Kenneth. I love reading your book." Well, I love hearing that. That's very nice. Thank you very much, Margaret. Leanne, did I say that right? Lean, what made you so interested about Atlantis that you even wrote a book about it? Well, Atlantis has obviously been all the way through since there was an Atlantis, and I believe that there was an Atlantis. So it's made it down through our history, our mythology, and the Romans spoke about it. Plato wrote about it, which is what everybody talks about during the Greek time period. Plato writes about it, and he learned about it from a man in Egypt, and that's where the story originally came from. I got interested in it because I would like to know if that's true or not. So then when I read Edgar Cayce's book, I mentioned it, Edgar Cayce. He never wrote a book, but they were written about him and the way he went into his trances. And through that, he claims that there was, like I said before, there was evidence of Atlantis in the pyramids in Central America. So all I had to do was jump into my Volkswagen camper and drive 17,000 miles down to Mexico and into Guatemala, although I did leave my camper in Texas and hitched through Mexico and Guatemala. I got from Jessa felt on. Kenneth, are you an avid bird watcher by any chance? Oh, well, here we go. We're going to bring up Black Menace. Black Menace, if you can see it, there we are. Black Menace is a book about two birds. It turns out while I was writing the Mandar book, I was living on a lake. I'm still living on the same lake. And out back, there was a nest of birds right beside my piece of property. Two birds I watched for 3 years very closely. They were called moorhens, and they don't fly much. You would recognize them because they're a little bigger than a pigeon. They do swim on the water, but they bob back and forth. Their heads bob back and forth. They don't have webbed feet. They've just got open claws. These birds, I noticed, acted more and more human as I watched them. Actually, I did take pictures of them also. They were very human. They fought for their territory. They are very territorial. They were very human in the sense that they took care of their chicks. At one point, they had 3 chicks and they lost 2 of them. And the third one, they kept in between the 2 of them. Mick and Beck, I named them. They lived between the 2 of them, and they took very good care of this chick until one day they swam across the lake in a thunderstorm, and the poor little bird flew away. Well, they crossed back and forth, up and down the lake, and finally they gave up, and they came back together, and I'm watching it, and they came directly at each other, and when their chests touched, they wrapped their necks around each other. You could feel their grieving. That was so human that I said, I've got to write a short story about these birds. They're just everything that's such human. I even saw them Mick save Beck and the chicks from an alligator. He chased an alligator right away, and the alligator was a lot bigger. At any rate, I was writing Manda, and I put it aside to write a short story. Well, 2 years later, I had a novel called Black Menace, and it's about birds. There are no humans at this time. Humans are gone. The only idea that there may have been humans was the fact that there was a huge bridge going across this lake. It was a dividing line in the lake, and the Black Menace lived in the north part of it, and Mick and Beck lived in the south part of it with all types of birds. I used a lot of books to come up with the actual way these birds looked. Besides, I saw a lot of them. I mean, I was able to look them up, find how they worked, how they ate, how they fed their children, how long they lived before they took off to another place. It turns out the moorhens stayed permanently in their spot. And like I said, for 3 years, I watched them fight other birds to keep their territory. Extremely territorial. I saw them fight. Mick and Beth both fight a great blue heron, which is called Graybird in the book. And he tried to eat the chicks, and they each kept pounding him in the stomach. They couldn't really fly well, but they could run. And they ran across the water and just hit him in the stomach, and hit him in the stomach again, and hit him in the stomach again until he flew off. These adventures all happened near the nest where I could see them. So anything in the book, the Black Menace book, that you see close to the nest is an actual vision. I saw it, I wrote about it. As far as the rest of the book is concerned, how they get into a war with the northern birds is fiction, of course. I couldn't see anything like that. But I do have a question from Ethan Lee. Creating a sci-fi fantasy has always fascinated me. Come up with something that is out of this world, interesting characters, technology, environment that we can only imagine it. It's TR, but I don't know what that means. Imagine it, amazing. Well, it is. I've written a number of books that are about autobiographical, and I have to admit my fiction is better. I like my fiction better, but I've always had an imagination. I was lucky when I was a young boy to. Well, we've got another question. Rebecca Jordan. minutes ago. Hi, Kenneth. Was Mandar inspired by Burroughs' John Carter? No, no, I didn't. I didn't know who he was at the time. I came up with it out of my mind. So, and what I saw down in Central America, and with reading Edgar Casey, of course. I can. A big shout out to my mom that is in the other room watching you live talk, Fort Worth, Texas. Oh, it's Anna Ogubs. Excuse me about pronouncing your name again. Annette Ogubs. Well, Annette, thank you very much for sending that to me. It's nice to know that I'm not just sitting here talking to myself, and that there's somebody that's interested in hearing what I want to say. And I'm hoping that I'll be happy enough to read about the book too, including Black Menace. And then with Jessica Pelton, Scourge of Apocalypse World. Black Menace sounds interesting. Emotion set number 1, 32 picks, 008. Whatever that is, I'm not sure. Yes, Black Menace is very interesting. You don't have to like birds. You don't have to think about birds. The story itself will carry you on through the book. It's a very good. After a while, you don't even realize the birds are birds. They just like another person talking to you, going through their adventures, going through their lives, falling in love, having chicks or babies in human cases, and having to take care of them, getting through the very frightening world of a large lake with alligators and snakes and hawks that come down to eat birds. They have to go through adventure after adventure, like Mandar does in Mandar of Atlantis. There's always some kind of problem around the corner, but they have good times, happy times, and they do deeply love each other. Paul Abenha, do you think somewhere out there's a moorhen amassing an army of other birds who take over the world? Not really, no. They would fight you if you came into their territory. There's no doubt about that. I'm still on Lake Osborne, and I still see them fighting other birds who come into their territory. They're extremely vicious with the territory. I don't think they're amassing together to take over humans. I think they're amassing together in order to fight off other predators. And this is one of the ways they've survived, because they're not large birds. They don't have beaks that are going to try to stab another bird or anything like that. Although their mouths, their beaks go all the way to their foreheads. You recognize them because it's red from their foreheads to their beaks. And the way they will fight is to come at you with that forehead and smash directly into you with that solid forehead. And that I've seen them chase even if you know what a great white egret is. This egret is a huge bird. They'll fight those right off. They're not afraid at all. Very strong characters. It's Annette Ogobs again. My mom freaked out after hearing you reading my comment. LOL. Oh, you're welcome. Very, very welcome. I'm glad she's watching this show because I'm enjoying doing it. And in some ways, I wish I didn't have to read the lines at the bottom. I could just talk to you directly. It would be easier, but this is the way it is, and this is the way I'm doing it. From Jessica Felton, I don't know how you did it, but I actually sympathize with the bird. Oh, of course you do. If you actually bought the book, you would really sympathize with the birds. And you'd say, why don't you write another one? And if I hadn't been writing Mandar at the time, I might have gone on with the sequel then. But Mandar was my main book. So I did finish Black Menace. I did get it published back in 2019. And it is out there on Amazon and Noble Books. Uh, just a fountain. Where was the research done for many of the animals in Black Menace? That was all done in books. I got five books on birds. So every bird that's in there is true to what the bird eats, how it raises its children, how it does everything. The birds that swim underwater, they become the submariners of the war between the northern birds and the southern birds. And of course, again, that part of that book is fiction. I've never actually seen a war between birds, but I imagined a war between birds, and if I have nothing else, I have a good imagination. Um, the research had to be there all the time. I had the 5 books. I looked up every bird in the book, and I kept them to as close as they could be to what you read about in Black Menace. And I was scared to death that this book was going to be considered a children's book because it's a bird book. So who reads bird books but children? Well, I thought make it an adult book, and it is an adult book, and it's very interesting to read. From Margaret Tucker, what real life situations help Black Menace? Like I said before, I saw Black Menace protect his family from an alligator. They were right across from me. The mother and two baby moorhens were there, and of course that was Beck and the chicks, and Mick was close to them. Well, Mick gets up on a raft, and he looks down at the alligator as he's coming up out of the water, and he knows that the chicks and Beck are about to get eaten up. And he jumps off that pier and he goes down to the alligator and he starts screaming his head off at him. And the alligator eventually turned around and got back in the water and was scared away. It was amazing that a bird could scare something like an alligator and save his family. I mean, these are very human things. Very, very, protecting your family. You put your life on your line to protect your family. And these birds do that. And it's a very interesting read. And from Margaret Tucker, are you thinking of incorporating other lost civilizations in future Mandar books, like Lemuria? Lemuria is in the 3rd. Mandar has to go there. There's a lot of problems in Atlantis. There's rumblings in the ground. Mandar is sent with his best friend and compatriot, who is Lugar. Lugar is actually one of the last of the Cro-Magnon men. There are still Cro-Magnon men at this time in Earth. The Cro-Magnon men are a head taller than the American Indian Atlanteans, but they're very calm and quiet, but extremely smart. They have magic of their own. Lugar has a magic necklace that he wears, and he is able to save the situation with his own magic at times. At the beginning of the 2nd book, the main characters are actually sleeping around that magic necklace because he's got it giving off a lot of heat. And therefore they can sleep as they're walking across the bridge that connects Angleland to Atlantis. I've got another message from Paul Abajo. I know I'll spell that. I'll pronounce that word right sometimes. We need more barbarian princesses in all books. Yes. Selena actually there's several chapters just about Selena in the Mandar book, where she came from, how strong she is. Because she was a girl, they wouldn't let her go out hunting, but they hunted woolly bison in Euroland. And she eventually convinces her father to let her go out and kill a bison. And at the time, the father finally said, yes, we'll do that. And so they get up early one morning, they go out while there's a herd of woolly bison nearby. And sure enough, the father does not see that there's a big male bison behind the female. And he's standing there, but Selena sees it. She's got her spear, and The big bison is about to come and get her father, but she throws her spear and kills him. The reason that all the woolly bison are moving in that direction is because there is a beast behind the group of woolly bison. These beasts are throughout the whole series of Mandar, and they are actually big beasts, about 8 or 9 feet tall, and they're always trying to take over Atlantean territory or human territory, and they are scaring. They're trying to scare the herd of buffalo into the campground of the Euros. I call them Euros, but they're from Euroland, and destroy the camp. Well, after not being killed, Selena's father runs up a hill and pushes a rock down, and that causes a landslide, which covers a hole and stops the beast from being able to take over the camp and destroy it. So that's one of the adventures of that book. Margaret Beckwith. We see another book with Mick, or maybe his children or descendants. I am seriously thinking about that. Suddenly, a flock of what they call Egyptian geese has landed. These Egyptian geese are extremely territorial themselves, and they're not only vicious. If you're walking and trying to go by them, they'll come out after you. And there's lots of them, like hundreds of them. And I, in the back of my mind, yes, there's an idea for a book where they are the bad guys, and Mick and Beck have to save the lake from them. So yes, there is a chance of having another one of those. From Joseph Felton, thank you so much for answering our questions, Kenneth. Your book's definitely worth reading and sharing. They are. I've spent years, actually, I've been writing for 40 years. I'm working on my 8th book right now. It's more than half done. And Mandar is an exciting adventure. Good characters, every reason to read it. But the second book of Mandar is even better. The characters are good, bad guys are badder. And they have their own tricks up their sleeves to try to defeat Mandar. And it takes place mostly in Atlantis itself. So you get a good picture of what Atlantis looks like. From Amanda Kane, I like your book cover. Amazing design for Mandar. Oh, thank you very much. It took a few tries to get this book to be this nice, and I'm glad you liked it. From Red S, I've got Mandar is the best. You must have read it. It really is a good book. I'm sure anybody who's doesn't just like adventure, but likes romance, because the romance is very deep between Selena and Mandar. Even though she's married to a very bad guy who does misdeeds through the whole book. But Mandar is a noble gentleman, and he's can't interfere with the marriage. So they stay apart, even though they know they love one another. So I'm not going to tell you what comes out of that, because why would you be bothered reading the book? But you'll learn if you read the book, and in the whole series, I won't tell you exactly what happens with them, but you'll enjoy her. And some people say that's the best part of the book. Her chapters, how she grew up, how she killed the buffalo, how she fought off the beasts. One of the reasons that the Atlanteans are going to war with the beasts, and one of the reasons she's going to Atlantis is to explain what she knows about the beasts, her and her husband. So that's part of what the Mandar story is about. Bob Montgomery, I hope we can read the sequel or both series soon. I would say probably by the first of the year, the second Mandar book will be out. Once you read the first book, you will definitely get the second book. And I know the third book also. The third book is going to be very similar. It's Mandar in Mu, which is Lemuria. And he goes through with very big adventures there with the help of Lugar and his daughter. But I won't tell you about that right now. There's notes, words up there. Let's see. How much time have I used up? Oh, I'm probably keeping you from getting your dinner ready. I hope not, because I'm looking forward to dinner myself. I do most of the cooking here, but I do more writing than cooking. Let's see. There we are. Can I download your book from Kobo? There are two versions of Kobo in Kobo, and I don't know which one is the updated one. The one with this, a cover similar to this, if you can see it, is the newest one. There's no changes in either book. Both books say the same thing. It's dedicated to my sister Laurie Mead, who is very sick and has helped me in editing the book, and especially with the grammar. So I'm thanking her on the television for doing that. And I know you realize once you read some of it that it was worth having her do it. And the Black Menace book, nobody read except me. So that's what you'll be one of the first readers to read it if you buy the book. And I'm sure that you're going to be excited about it, and you're going to be on one of these programs, you're going to say, we want the next book about Black Menace and Mick and Beck, because it ends with them still meditating and continuing on with their life. From Joseph Felton, let's talk about Mandar. Did Manny go back in time or the future? Manny goes back in time. When he goes into the delusion in Guatemala City, he becomes Mandar of Atlantis. He is an incarnation of Mandar. So he does go back in time, and he does go through the adventures that you read about in the book. Obviously, I didn't go back 14,000 years. But like I said, I can imagine what it might have been 14,000 years ago. I read so much about Atlantis in the Edgar Cayce books. And not by Edgar Cayce. His son did write about him. But there are 5 books out there about Edgar Cayce's talking about Atlantis. So if you want to know more about Atlantis, find anything that's read about Edgar Cayce, and you learn about that. I'm surprised more people don't know about Edgar Cayce, because he was an incredible person, and you'll see him on different shows like Ancient Aliens, and they'll mention him. So please do that. Bob Montgomery, the blast hanging out with you, Kenneth. Well, that's good to hear. I'm having a blast doing this. And thank you for Reader's Magnet for helping me to do it. Otherwise, I'd probably still be writing away on the next Mandar book and thinking about making dinner. Let's see. Thank you. This is from Annette Ogos B. I wish you could tell me exactly how to pronounce that. Thank you. I'll purchase this one today. I'm very happy to hear this. And you won't forget it. You won't be sorry. Tell your friends if you want a good book, a nice page turner. Please read Mandar of Atlantis and Black Menace. Black Menace is also a page turner. You've got to find out what's going to happen with Mick, who's the main character in the story, and his relationship with Beck, how it comes together and how it almost falls apart. The battles that they go through to become a couple. These birds are so human. Like I said, anything that happened around the nest happened. I saw it happen, and it'll seem very human to you, and it was very human to me. So please read that book, Black Menace, along with Mandar. And like I said, I'm more than halfway through the second book of Mandar, and that'll be coming out before too long. And it Ogobs, I almost got that right. I'll come back tomorrow and let you know what I think about your book. Cheers. Oh, thank you so much. And I would love to hear it. I would love to hear any kind of comment, good or bad. As an author, you have to understand that you can appeal to everyone. So some people think things are great. Some people think they're okay. Some people think, well, that's terrible. Well, none of them are terrible. But any opinion you can give me is good for me. It allows me to know that I'm on the right track or if I'm on the wrong track with something. So I need to know that. And I'm not sure exactly what my time is right now, but it's possible that it's over. I'm not sure. Nobody's telling. So I'll just keep talking for now. I can talk lots about Mandar. Mandar was an exciting book to write. It was exciting traveling through Central America, looking through the pyramids. I did go through adventures that aren't in the book, cases where people pulled a knife out on me and wanted money. Cases where I had to sleep out in the middle of the jungle. Lots of things like that. I mean, it was almost like going back to Vietnam in some ways, except I never really felt afraid through the whole thing. I did give the man the dollar he wanted with his knife aimed at me, but besides that, it was a nice trip. And the pyramids are really a lot of fun to look at. If you get a chance to go down there, you can take cruises and see them, or you can read about it in Black Menace, well, not Black Menace, Mandar. Mandar talks a lot about getting there at the beginning with Manny, even though he has to go through misadventures, just getting there. I think my time is almost run out. It's like 41, 44, so I'm still talking, and nobody's telling me to shut up, so I guess I can keep talking until somebody does. At any rate, I don't want to tell you too much story about the Mandar book, but again, 3 of them are already outlined. 3 books are outlined, and all I have to do is put down the words in them. The Black Menace book, like I said, I have an idea of using these Egyptian geese as the bad guys for the next book of that. You need to have tension. There's a love story again between the 2 birds and their children, as they do have chicks, and the chicks have grown up, and they have to go out on their own adventure. So there's a lot to be said about the Moorhen tribe, and I guess that's about it. All I have to say for today. And so I'd like to say goodbye for now, and I hope to see you again on Reader's Magnet. It's a great show place for writers like myself who want to get their words out there, work very, very hard. Like I said, 40 years writing 8 books, and I'm finally getting a chance to talk to people about it. And everybody who has read the book said, these are page turners. I love this book. Well, everybody should love them if you like the work. So thank you very much. I'm going to say goodbye for today, and hope to see you again soon. Well, goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye, and thanks again.